Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing good as always. So I finally was able to rent one of these, the Nikon Z 70-180 2.8 lens, and I took it out this weekend to the Yokohama Urban Sports Festival to give it a real run through on a full 2 days of shooting and see how it does in a real job situation. So yeah, let's just jump into it and check it out. So first off, I really want to just say, and I'm just going to put this out there right at the beginning of this video, yes, the Nikon Z 70-200 2.8 lens is much better than this lens actually. So I know that. I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. This is still a very good lens, and there's a lot of reasons why I liked using this lens on the weekend, and a lot of reasons why I think it could be a good lens for you if, say, you are starting out photographer or somebody like myself who does long days of shooting events that require, you know, a good 70-200, but 70-180 is what we used. It'll do the job and is actually superior in a few ways that I'll go through right now. Okay, so just a little bit about what the shooting was that I did over the weekend. So like I said, I was at the Yokohama Urban Sports Festival. This is a 2-day, very, very long days of shooting. And my personal main aspects of shooting were some of the flatland BMX, skateboard, 3-on-3 basketball, some breakdance, some double dutch, and some freestyle football. So I did a little bit of everything. It was a really good time. You can tell I'm sunburnt. It was 36 degrees all day, both days. It was tons of fun, but this lens worked out really, really well. So in these kind of event situations, there's two lenses I'll use generally, a 70-200 or a 24-70. Things like breakdancing and double dutch and the freestyle soccer, those are a smaller stage, so you can get away with using a 24-70 very, very easily. You need to be able to be a bit wider because I'll be sitting down in the front row. But things like flatland BMX, skateboarding, and 3-on-3 basketball, a lens like this is really helpful because the stage is so much bigger, so much wider, and I need to zoom in a lot more, and I'm physically a lot further away from the people that I'm shooting. So this lens came in handy a lot over the weekend for shooting those three types of events, and I did a lot of shooting with them. I left my 70-200 at home, and I just took out the 70-180 because I really, really wanted to see exactly what I can get with it, and I, didn't have time to be popping back and forth because I am working, and it's a really hard day, a long day either way. So yeah, let's just talk about exactly, the physical aspects of this lens that I found that I enjoyed using, that in some ways are superior, especially to my 70-200 f-mount lens, which is what I've been using because I haven't been able to buy the Z 70-200 lens out there. Like, I think a lot of photographers, they're still using some of their older f-mount gear on the Z-mount cameras, like myself. First off, the physical size of these lenses is quite a bit different. The Z 70-200 is kind of the similar size as the f-mount, so they're quite longer. They're noticeably heavier is one thing I found for sure. If I'm only going to go out and shoot for an hour or half an hour, maybe a quick portrait shoot of a model or a wedding shoot or something like that, sure, a little extra weight is really not going to kill me on my shoulders or anything like that. I'm not a small person. I can handle a little bit of extra weight. But this weekend, I was literally shooting from about 10 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. So that's a long day, 12, 14 hours of shooting, a couple breaks here and there, of course. And I wasn't using the long lens the whole time, but still, I was using it a lot this weekend, shooting a lot of different things. So this extra little bit of less weight that you have to deal with is actually a huge bonus when shooting these kind of events. And I found that really after the long day, my shoulders weren't normally as tired and sore as they would have been if I was shooting with the 70-200 that I have right now. Also, one thing I found that I really liked about the build of this lens is the lens weight really kind of comes down to, you can see if I hold it in the middle, it tips this way. So the lens weight is further in the back of the lens, closer to the body. So when you're actually holding the camera with the lens on it, I found it really balanced very, very nice in my hands. It doesn't become top heavy. So I'm not, one, fighting with this hand to keep it balanced, and two, I'm not having to hold my left hand underneath the lens really and really, really support it with my left hand. I'm able to hold my hands in tighter and keep everything in nice and tight on myself, and it's just less weight and all centered. Whereas, if I was to shoot with this, and this is the F-mount, so understand that I have the extender on here. Now, say if I try to hold this in the middle, you notice that, and I don't want to drop it, but all the weight goes to the front. So the way this lens is built, it seems that the weight is much further in the front of the lens than with the 70-180. So what this does, it makes your camera and lens a lot more front heavy. So now I'm having to support it a lot more with my left hand and fight it a bit more with my right hand. Even just holding it now like this, I'm still tired from the weekend, but I can really notice a lot of weight in this one. So not only is the 70-180 lighter in general, but I find, I'm just gonna put this back down, But I find because the weight of the lens is further back in the back of the lens and closer to the body, it brings that center of gravity back towards the body of the camera, and actually makes it much more balanced in my hands and much more comfortable to use in general for the long period of the day. I really liked it, and I noticed a real big difference when I was shooting, actually. So yeah, like I said, not only is it lighter, but I find the weight distribution on this lens is much more comfortable than my 70-200. Now, shooting these events, things are moving around really quickly, coming back and forth, especially things like 3-on-3 basketball and skateboarding, things like that. So I find that I'm zooming quite a lot, changing my composition of my photo depending on where people are at, and zooming quite a bit. Now, I did find the zoom on this lens to be a little bit stiff for my liking, maybe just because I'm so used to my super loose f-mount 70-200, but when I have to zoom really quickly and change quickly, I found this to be a little bit stiff. That's just my personal preference, but you might find that it's a little bit slow to zoom comparatively to some of the older lenses that I have, especially myself. Not a real big issue. I did find it, I could get used to it, but it's just it feels a little stiff. I wish it would be a little bit more smooth and loose on the zooming. Even if it was a little bit looser, it does have a lock on it that's really quite nice to use. So when you're walking around, your lens doesn't creep, and if you want to be straight on 70mm, you can lock it and keep it on there. However, this is one of the first lenses I've used that has this kind of a lock on it. So when I was moving around, I'd lock it, and then I'd forget that it's locked because it's not something I would normally do. And then, there's something happening in front of me. All of a sudden, the skater comes that I wasn't really quite prepared to shoot, and I'd go up and try to zoom, and it'd be locked, and I was like, what's going on? I gotta unlock it. So it was a bit of an extra step to use this lock. I think it's a great idea to have, but this lens, it's so tight and stiff on the zoom, it just doesn't creep at all. So, I mean, it's kind of a little bit redundant. I know I'd really like to have it on some of my other lenses, but with this lens, I don't really need it. And if you're not used to it, I don't suggest you use it, but maybe when you're packing and stuff like that, it's good to have, but I found it a bit of a pain every once in a while, just because I'm personally not used to it. So yeah, it's just something else that's on there. That's a feature. And this does have the programmable ring on it as well, which I haven't really gotten into using it, but if that is something you want to have on your lens, you can use this to program in a number of different ways, so that is on there. Notice also there is no internal stabilization in this lens. I myself, when I'm shooting these events, a lot of things are moving so fast that I shoot at a shutter speed of say 800 to 1000 to 1250 usually at the lower end. So internal stabilization isn't really big of an issue for me when I'm shooting because the shutter speed just kind of covers it, no problem. So that's not an issue for me at all. If you're a sports photographer or doing these kind of sporting events that you're shooting, I don't think you really need the image stabilization. The Z9 has it internal, so that's helpful. But do note that the 70-200 Z 2.8 does also have internal stabilization in the lens, so that will help you out if you're having to shoot at slower shutter speeds and things like that. So just be aware that is a big difference when it comes down to the price in the long run, is the internal stabilization of yes or no. So yeah. Now, something that a lot of people obviously are worried about is image quality. So you are paying much less for the lens, so maybe you get much less image quality. I myself, I've said in many videos, I'm not a super technical shooter. I'm not a pixel peeper shooter. I just look at the images and what the image portrays to me, the feeling I get from it. And the images I got with this over the weekend were great. I have no issues with image quality. The autofocus was on my subject the entire time. I didn't miss anything like that, so I didn't get a lot of like missed shots or blurry or unfocused shots at all, so that was great. You might also expect there to be chromatic aberration, which is like a purple or green or pink line that's in the really highlighted and contrasty areas of the image. None of that. I didn't see any of that in the images that I took. So I was really happy about that. And overall, the photos I took look great. They're crisp, good color rendition from the lens, nice little bit of contrast in there. So in general, like, I really can't say anything negative about the image quality. I think if you're doing this kind of event shooting and things like that, and yeah, this is great. You'll be super happy with the images you get. And it's really, I couldn't really find a fault in the image quality using this lens. Like, they look great. So yeah, just a real quick review. Like, I really had a lot of fun using this lens, especially with the skateboarding, flatland BMX, and the 3-on-3 basketball. Really, like, the 70-180 is perfect for this kind of, the focal length there is perfect for these sports. I'm able to zoom in if I need to be further back and get a nice little close-up of the athletes in that. If I'm closer, I can really zoom in, get a really good expressions on them when they're battling each other for the basketball. They're trying to do a really new cool trick and stuff like that. But I can also go out to 70 and get a bit of a wider, take a little bit of a step back and get like the whole kind of environment of the shot there as well. So it's a very diverse and dynamic focal length that you can do a lot of different things with. So these kind of event shooting and things like that, I think it's a really good lens to pick up for anybody, really. If you're shooting long days and you want a bit of a lighter lens that is still 2.8 all the way through, and something that you could really use and utilize well for these kind of event shoots, awesome. Pick it up for sure. If, again, like I said at the very beginning, if money is an issue and you can get the 70 to 200 2.8 Z mount lens, of course, get that lens. Of course, I'm not going to go in the comments here and argue with people that this is a superior lens to that lens. No, it's not. There's many different things that that lens, image quality, internal stabilization, and everything have over this lens. But if, like I said, you're an event photographer and you're shooting long days, need less weight, maybe you're a hiker and you don't really want to have a whole lot of weight in your backpack, but on a versatile lens that stays at 2.8, perfect. This is great. The price is awesome as well, much, much cheaper than the Z mount 70 to 200. Depending on what you're doing, I think this could be really useful for a lot of people out there who do jobs like I did this weekend, who will be shooting 8, 10, 14 hours a day and don't want to die at the end of the day. They want to be able to enjoy that beer at the end of the day and lift something up and have a drink of water and not be like, oh, my shoulders. Because, man, some of these days with that 70 to 200, I was in pain. Couldn't even finish the shoot sometimes. So much weight on there. So hope that's helpful. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up anytime, and yeah, I have the lens this time. Hey. Anyways, talk to you guys soon. I hope to hear from you, and yeah, subscribe, and I'll hit you up soon. Cheers.